Tonight, the province's health authority pushes back on nurses' claims around neonatal care in Regina. People rally for affordable and accessible childcare.
We seem to be in the crosshairs of two global superpowers.
And canola farmers say they feel left behind as trade wars continue.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, April 15th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thanks for joining us. A stunning allegation floated by the province's nurses union is receiving pushback from the provincial government. They say the union is fear-mongering. Alexander Kwan brings us our top story.
The Saskatchewan Health Authority says they have not had to send critically ill babies to North Dakota. That's despite claims from the head of the province's nurses union. Tracy Zambori told a media outlet on Monday that moms and their sick babies are being sent south of the border due to a lack of capacity in the neonatal intensive care unit at Regina General Hospital. The NDP even held a press conference about it on Tuesday, but it didn't take long for the Saskatchewan Health Authority to speak out and debunk the claim. They say no baby has been sent out of the province due to a surge in demand, and the last time that happened was more than 15 years ago. Still, the SHA admits Regina General's NICU is facing challenges.
So it's a very dynamic situation.
Dr. Terry Clausen says NICU capacity is still available at hospitals in other cities in Saskatchewan, including Saskatoon and Prince Albert. Health Minister Jeremy Cockrell took aim at the NDP and Saskatchewan Union of Nurses.
To sow fear among expectant mothers that they're going to have to go to North Dakota because of capacity issues is not true, and I think it's irresponsible.
Nurses Union President Tracy Zambori declined to repeat her comments about North Dakota in an interview on Tuesday.
Our Facebook page makes it clear that transfers have happened, and mums from the public, and I've heard from public myself, that these things have happened.
As for the NDP, rural and remote health critic Mira Conway disagreed with Cockrell's comments.
I am an expectant mother. I take great issue with that statement, that we are sowing fear with expectant mothers. I am an expectant mother. The minister needs to stop playing games and do his job. Be transparent. We want the information.
Cockrell says he's directed the SHA to increase the number of baseline staff at Regina's NICU, which should ease pressure during surges in the future. Those positions should be posted soon. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Daycare operators and families gathered for a rally at the Legislature in Regina Tuesday. They say many child care centres are facing closure in Saskatchewan. Operators say it is because of how the province funds daycares and because it has not signed on to the federal government's $10 a day daycare extension. They want the province to sign the extension and also called for a change to the province's funding model. Saskatchewan is one of only 2 provinces that haven't signed on yet.
Currently, if this does not get signed back in, I don't know if I can return to work. And because 1 month of childcare is 1 paycheck, which means I have to choose between working or keeping her, or staying at home, and then our family struggling to even make groceries or keep a house over our head.
NDP child care critic Joan Pratchler was also at the rally. She called for the government to provide emergency funding to help centres and said the government could have signed the federal deal to bring stability to families. In a statement, the province says it is looking forward to negotiating a new child care agreement with the federal government. A senior is speaking out about the living conditions at a Saskatoon Housing Authority building in Saskatoon. Lynette Boris, who uses a wheelchair, has lived at King Edward Place near downtown Saskatoon for over 15 years. Boris says people experiencing homelessness and those with addiction issues are now being housed there and are causing unsafe living conditions. She says items have been stolen from tenants' apartments.
What worries me the most, that somebody's actually, like my screen has been slashed. What worries me the most is one of these days that screen's not only going to be slashed, but broken, and I'm going to be helpless to defend myself.
The NDP says they've been told there is open drug use in the building's common areas. The party says no one with addictions issues or people who are homeless should be in the building because it doesn't have the supports those people need. The Housing Authority disputes the allegations, however, saying everyone living in the building is at least 55 years old and meets all of the requirements to live there. The Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association convention is hearing a lot about mental health and addictions. This year's keynote speaker is Gabor Mate, a renowned addictions expert, and some delegates say funding to help communities under pressure is too focused on the big cities. Since 2022, SUMA has made mental health and addictions top lobbying priorities. On Monday, delegates passed a resolution calling on the province to fund emergency shelters and supportive housing outside of Saskatoon and Regina.
It is in all the different communities in some way or the other, whether they're large or small. It's happening, and it's happening in our communities, on our streets, in our homes, in our businesses. So we need to address this. And we need our provincial government and our federal government to address these issues that we're facing.
Earlier Tuesday, the convention re-elected Golden to a second term as president. And Wednesday, delegates get to grill provincial cabinet ministers at SUMA's annual Bear Pit session. Well, Chinese tariffs are driving uncertainty for Canada's canola producers. Canola oil and meal have been under a 100% levy since last month, adding to that pervasive tariff threat from the United States. And as Alexander Silberman tells us, canola farmers are worried they're being abandoned in Canada's trade war battles.
We're here at a canola farm in Saskatchewan where there's a growing sense of frustration around the trade war and political uncertainty. This industry is continuing to get hit with 100% Chinese tariffs on canola oil and meal, hurting the second largest export market. So prices have been extremely volatile in recent months, dropping quickly before climbing back up. Those Chinese tariffs are in direct response to Canadian tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. And that has canola producers, like the family who runs this farm, feeling like the federal government is prioritizing the auto industry over agriculture.
If our canola industry is going to be sacrificed for a Canadian trade policy that prioritizes other industries like auto or dairy, we have to understand the hurt to our farms and our communities is going to be devastating.
Canola is Canada's most valuable crop and an industry built around free trade. More than 90% of it gets exported from farms like this one, with the vast majority going to the United States. So the threat of U.S. tariffs has created uncertainty. But another challenge is a decline in demand for use as a biofuel. Canola gets used to make things like diesel and aircraft fuel as a low-carbon alternative. But demand for that has taken a hit due to changes in American regulations.
I think the single word would be chaos. So as of January, we learned that canola oil does not qualify for a tax credit in the United States, otherwise known as 45Z. So without eligibility for that tax credit, we find ourselves having a difficult time to compete in the U.S. biofuel market.
Canola producers say all that uncertainty makes it difficult to plan, and with millions of dollars invested in their farms, the stakes are high. Without long-term, stable free trade, they warn their industry might not have a future. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, near Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in Montreal Tuesday, where he confirmed his plans to defund the CBC. However, he is promising to continue support for French language services for Francophone Canadians. Poilievre says he doesn't have a timeline for stripping the broadcaster of its public funding.
I don't have a time frame, but we've already said, I've already made my position clear on that, and it hasn't changed. We're going to defund the CBC and let Canadians enjoy it as a nonprofit, self-funded organization. Yeah. which is what I've said all along, while protecting services at Radio-Canada, because without Radio-Canada, the francophones across the country would not have access to that information.
Poilievre's plan to defund the CBC would require revisiting the Broadcasting Act, which outlines the public broadcaster's mandate. Currently, the law requires CBC to provide programming in both official languages. Well, a good day for watching the Pelicans at the Weir in Saskatoon. Meewasin Valley Authority, by the way, says the first Saskatoon pelican of spring was spotted last Wednesday night. They typically arrive between April 2nd and 21st. And I'll let you know if there's more good pelican watching weather in my full forecast after the break. A Toronto woman says a recent rideshare experience has left her feeling uncomfortable and unsafe. Last month, she received a text message minutes after she was dropped off by a Lyft driver. In it was a transcript of the entire conversation she had had with her friends in the vehicle. Sarah McMillan has the story.
An 8-minute rideshare drive has led to weeks of unease and unanswered questions for Anvi Ahuja. Last month, she took a Lyft with her roommates to their downtown Toronto apartment. When she got home, she received a text message from an unknown number that she could only describe one way.
Freaky.
That message was a transcription of the conversation she'd had minutes earlier with her friends in the back of the car.
It was such a long, weird message, and I got really freaked out. I was like, I think I'm being stalked. I think this is just really freaky.
When she calls the number back,
we can't connect your call because your driver is not available right now.
It clearly showed to me that it's not a personal number. It's a number associated within a system, so that raised a lot more eyebrows for me.
Lyft's explanations about how this happened have been inconsistent. Ahuja says when she first spoke with a Lyft representative by phone that night, she was told the recording was part of a pilot project by the company. In later messages, the company blamed the driver for recording without Ahuja's consent, calling the behavior unacceptable. While drivers and riders don't have access to each other's phone numbers, Lyft's privacy policy says it uses a third party so they can call and text each other, which could be how the driver contacted Ahuja through a masked number. Lyft does have a recording pilot in some U.S. cities, but not here in Canada, and insists this incident is unrelated. Ahuja's experience could be more than just unsettling. In Canada, it's against the law to record someone else's conversation without their consent or a court order. Privacy experts say this incident could also contravene federal privacy laws.
How can this take place? You're paying for a taxi equivalent to take you somewhere, Lyft in this case, and of course you assume that you're going to have conversations with other people in the car without it being taped and transcribed and retained. Completely unacceptable.
Lyft says it takes reports like this seriously, but Ahuja says she's not satisfied with how the company has responded.
It was not until like multiple nudges that I even got a response around the fact that we're so sorry your driver did that. I don't think Lyft took it seriously at all, and I don't think they took accountability on any of it.
Ahuja says she's done taking lifts. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, safe to say April certainly has been treating us nicely when it comes to the weather for the most part. And for those of us in Regina, as you can see, another nice sunny one out there as well. The temperature is quite nice as well. We'll take a look at where we got to on this Tuesday throughout the province, and breaking over 20 degrees for many locations, really throughout south and central. You notice as far north as Meadow Lake, we even hit near 20 degrees. Up a little further north, though, we're seeing temperatures hanging back near the freezing mark in places like Stony Rapids and Collins Bay, and that is because of that system that continues to churn through that part of the province. It's been bringing some rain and some snow at times, some pockets of that showing up in south and central through the day as well. That'll continue to make its way through the north overnight, where it'll be mostly snow, I think, for folks up there now as the temperatures continue to drop. South and central, though, cloud cover building in as we head into early Wednesday morning. Some showers possible through west central and southwestern areas as we head into early Wednesday. That makes its way eastward but begins to dissipate as that moves into the Parkland region. That whole system in the north then begins to shift southward as we get into Wednesday evening, and that increases cloudiness once again through south and central, bringing through some periods of some flurries and showers once again for many parts of the southern half of the province at least. And then Thursday, sort of a rinse and repeat scenario as that system begins to pull away before things clear out a little bit as we get into Friday, as high pressure starts to move in. So for the north, again, a little bit of rainfall, but I think again most of this is going to end up falling as snow, maybe a couple more millimeters in there. And that snow really concentrated to the far north. I think in those areas there, we're looking for another couple of centimeters, maybe pockets of up to 5 centimeters is what we can expect. Winds will stay gusty as the system continues to make its way through. As we get into early Wednesday, as that rain starts to move into western sections, that's when we'll start to see things pick up a bit. Still gusty for many of us. Another day with, those gusts in the range of maybe 50 to 60 through south and central into Wednesday afternoon. Dying down a bit as we get into Thursday as that high pressure starts to move in, but still a bit of a breeze, especially in southern regions. For Regina, again, chance of maybe some flurries as we get into the afternoon Wednesday, left with cloud cover for Thursday, things clearing out for Friday and Saturday. The Easter weekend looking quite nice. Easter Monday, we might see a shower in there before we see some cloud cover for Tuesday. And then Saskatoon, a bit of a breezy one again as we head into Wednesday with some possible showers or flurries as we get into Thursday, then clearing for Friday and Saturday. Easter Sunday, just a slight chance of some showers or flurries for Monday, and we can't seem to shake the showers or flurries as we get into the start of the next work week, with Tuesday a high of 10. At least temperatures will be fairly nice as those overnight lows hang just around the freezing mark. Well, climate change is one of the issues on the agenda for the French language leaders debate on Wednesday. But with tariffs and cost of living dominating the election campaign so far, climate change has been taking a back seat, a far cry from elections past. CBC News climate correspondent Susan Ormiston looks at why.
Big pressure back in 2019 when over 40% of Canadians polled said a top issue was environment and climate change. But in the years since, that metric by Angus Reid Polling has sunk, diving further in the last 6 months.
We have witnessed a significant decline. It's being overshadowed by more pressing and more immediate issues, that being affordability, housing, the cost of living, and obviously tariffs and Donald Trump.
Even after last year's wildfires, extreme floods, and huge hail, a majority of Canadians likely won't vote on climate policy.
Carney and Polyev are trying to stay away from the climate conversation to avoid that risk of alienating those who may be considered swing voters.
Instead, there is lots of talk about building more oil and gas pipelines.
We can build Canadian pipelines with Canadian steel. How many projects have the Liberals killed already?
To be an energy superpower, we also need to get more conventional energy built, with a focus on making it as clean as possible.
But how? Mark Carney's first move as Prime Minister was to cut the consumer carbon tax, thereby neutralizing Poilievre's main attack, Axe the Tax.
I was a little bit nervous to see Carney cut the carbon tax because I don't know what policies on the environment he has in store.
It's not that Canadians don't want action on climate. Polling in March showed 3/4 of voters want the leaders to take climate change seriously. But what does that mean?
I have not heard a lot of parties talk about carbon emissions, talk about climate change.
There is space in the looming economic crisis, Bruyette says, to recognize that cleaner energy is a sovereignty issue.
Despots can't control the sun and the wind. The missed opportunity right now is one of political leadership and imagination of how we could transform our economy.
Because, tariffs or not, the climate risk will only grow. Whomever wins can't escape that. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, these are 12-week-old northern African lion cubs at a zoo in England. Keepers say all 4 have had their first health check and are doing well. With the new arrivals, the zoo now has a pride of 10 northern African lions. The public is being asked to help name the young cubs. Stay with us. We'll have more news for you after the break. Welcome back. California is launching a new campaign to keep Canadian tourists traveling south to visit.
The state of mind in the United States of America has dramatically changed as it relates to the approach to Canada. And we want to make sure we send a message to our Canadian friends up north to come to a state where 2 million Canadians visited last year.
That is Governor Gavin Newsom in a social media video he posted Monday night. Newsom says California is a grateful tourism partner of Canada, and he specifically ties a 12% drop in Canadian tourism to his state to U.S. President Donald Trump taking office. In a direct message to Canadians, Newsom says, "Don't let you-know-who in D.C. ruin your beach plans." Well, maybe not quite California beach weather here just yet, but we are looking at temperatures staying pretty warm overnight for many of us, in between that freezing and +5 mark through south and central. Again, a chance of some showers as that system starts to move in from the west as we go overnight and into sort of the early morning hours for many areas. Up north, the situation is the snow that we're keeping an eye on, of course, with temperatures hovering right around freezing. Specifically in the far north is where we continue to see that. Even into Wednesday, system slides southward a bit, so areas in the Churchill region clouding over, catching some flurries or showers. For the far north, though, I think it is just continued flurries or light snow. I think it's less of a chance of rain for you folks there. Then into south and central Saskatchewan. That's where in the early morning hours Wednesday we see that rainfall start to make its way eastward into the Parkland region and east central areas. I think is where we could catch a little bit of rain. The rest of us seeing some morning cloud cover and maybe a little bit of wind as well as we head through the day. Some clearing by the noon hour, and then as we head later into the afternoon, central areas seeing possibly some showers or flurries there. Southern areas looking at mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures, though, jumping up to near seasonal values once again. A little cooler again with some of those winds as well. And finally, video from the world-famous San Diego Zoo shows a herd of elephants coming together during an earthquake Monday. Experts call this an alert circle. The elephants were protecting a young calf when they felt the ground begin to shake. The zoo says the herd returned to normal behavior after a few minutes, but they did stay close to one another. Monday's earthquake in Southern California measured 5.2 magnitude on the Richter scale. And that is it for us. For more news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/Sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel or download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.